Tansei, I'm Krisanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The Manitoba Keewatinowi Okimakanak, or MKO, is calling on the public to be extra vigilant after they say someone tried to kidnap a child from a school in the northern city of Thompson. In a press release, the MKO says a man tried to lure a 6-year-old child of Chief Angela Lavaseur of Nisitchewayasik Cree Nation while they were waiting outside the school for their older siblings. The attempt failed. The child was taught to never trust strangers who try and pick them up. The MKO says the man was 6'4" with a thin build, wearing an orange jacket and a black balaclava. The MKO says the Mystery Lake School Division did not inform parents about 2 other abduction attempts last week. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Sethi says the school division has to improve communication with parents and that the RCMP should increase their presence around school during school hours. In a statement, Chief Lavaseur added, "This never should have happened. Our children deserve to be safe. It's important to remember even trusted spaces can hold risks. Let this be a reminder to all parents, stay vigilant. No family should have to face this nightmare." MKO Grand Chief Sethi also said, "Protecting our children requires collective responsibility. It truly takes a village to raise a child. Let this serve as a crucial reminder that we must all remain vigilant and committed to safeguarding our children." A man is dead and another man has been arrested following a stabbing on the Saddle Lake Cree Nation in Alberta. Last Wednesday, on January 8th, RCMP members responded to a report of a stabbing at a home on the reserve. They found 61-year-old Garvin Lloyd Chisan with serious injuries. He was airlifted by helicopter to hospital in Edmonton. However, he later died of his injuries. On Thursday, January 10th, RCMP arrested and charged 44-year-old Saddle Lake resident Jeremy Sean Cardinal with first-degree murder. Cardinal made his first court appearance on Monday in Lac La Biche. RCMP Major Crimes is investigating. To Ottawa news now. The Liberals and the NDP are both blaming each other for killing Bill C-61, the First Nations Clean Water Act. This is the legislation that is supposed to affirm the inherent rights of all First Nations to clean and safe drinking water. APTN's Fraser Needham has the story.
With the Liberal government's decision to prorogue the House of Commons last week, a number of bills died before becoming laws, including the First Nations Clean Water Act. But in an interview last week on APTN's Nation to Nation, Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says it never had to come to this in the first place.
You know, the NDP talked a good game about, wanting to get this bill through and yet put up a number of roadblocks even after the AFN and other partners appealed with them to speed up the process.
But the NDP's Laurie Idlout says the Liberals are simply not being honest about the legislation. She says First Nations were not properly consulted on Bill C-61 before it was drafted, and it was the party's responsibility to make sure these voices were heard.
It was the NDP that was ensuring that First Nations voices were being heard by giving them as much time as we could to share their testimony, and as well as tabling amendments that they had submitted. I submitted about 80 amendments from First Nations, and that to me is not slow walking.
Idloat adds the NDP was willing to be flexible on the legislation and withdrew certain amendments in committee after the Assembly of First Nations asked it to do so. Hajdu says there is still a remote chance the legislation could be saved, that the NDP should reconsider its pledge to vote non-confidence in the government when Parliament resumes sitting at the end of March.
But my hope is that when the Liberal leader is appointed and we come back to the House of Commons, that the NDP will realize that bringing down the House of Commons is going to deeply hurt First Nations. And maybe there'll be a path forward to bring that bill back to the House of Commons. I know our government would certainly support that.
But Idlout says Liberals have passed the point of no return, and there's virtually no chance of this happening.
I think they just became so desperate to cover up their failures, and they don't deserve another chance.
In order for Bill C-61 to be resurrected, opposition parties would have to agree to a motion to resume debate on the legislation where it had been left off prior to prorogation. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Nova Scotia MP Haim Batist has announced this week he will be running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party, following the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just 1 week ago. In 2019, Batist made history as the first elected Mi'kmaq MP, and he now wants to make history again as the first Indigenous Prime Minister. We recently spoke to Haim Batist, who joined us from Sydney, Nova Scotia. Haim, thank you so much for speaking with us today. My first question is, we hear that you have announced that you are running for the leader of the Liberal Party following Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation. Can you tell us what made you make the decision to run?
Wala and Kristen and Delby Banim in Jigu and Haginawa and Delby. Thank you, Kristen. I figured the first words out of my mouth should be in Mi'kmaq in this because this is APTN and I'm a Mi'kmaq speaker. I was strongly encouraged and urged to do this. I was, once the Prime Minister stepped down, I had so many people reaching out to me saying, you need to throw your name in the ring. You need to be a strong Indigenous voice. You have a platform that no one else has. I was really, honored by that. And I said, I knew it was a real tough task. And I knew that $350,000 is a lot to raise. But I felt, there always has to be a first. And before there was a Premier Wab Kinew, there had to be an Elijah Harper. Before there was a President Obama, there had to be a Jesse Jackson. There always has to be someone who's the first to try, even if those first steps that they take are just to pave the way forward for future generations. And I felt I needed to create some excitement in this race to ensure that Indigenous voices were heard, reconciliation, environmental issues, social justice. These are what I continue to stand for, and I really believe that that's a big part of why I want to have my name on the ballot and to see if I can do this.
Haim, what was your reaction of hearing the Prime Minister announcing that he was resigning? This was your leader.
Yeah, I was sad. I thought, and I said this on APTN, I thought that this Prime Minister will go down in history as probably the best for Indigenous issues. Whenever I spoke to him on Indigenous issues, I really felt he cared. We had the first ever Supreme Court Justice. We have the first ever Indigenous Governor General. We have the first ever Indigenous Language Commissioner. We have so many historic firsts for Indigenous people because of him. And, I think that the work he did to advance Indigenous legislation, to advance a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I was quite sad when he decided to step down, but I also knew it was an opportunity for other leaders to have their voices heard. And I really felt that, I had other people in mind for this. I didn't think that I was going to do this. I went to Ottawa last week, and I'm just troubled a little bit by the direction that I'm hearing. And I want to be that person who's on the ballot, who continues with the values of, the National Food Program, dental care, pharmacare, affordable child care, and housing supports. I think that we need to move forward on that. I don't think that people were tired of our policies. I think they just got tired of the Prime Minister as a person, and that's unfortunate.
Talking about some of those top priorities that you were just mentioning there, I also think about what Trump has been saying, south of the border. Are you hoping to address that too, if you were to become the leader of the Liberal Party? Yeah,
and who knew that in order to make America great again, you needed to add 40 million kind and caring Canadians. So I think that we have to be serious about what Trump is saying. We have to ensure that what we're doing is a good response. I think that we have a tremendous team in place with Dominic LeBlanc and Melanie Joly to address those in the short term. But also, as you know, there are treaties in Canada. There are treaties in the United States, and some of these tariffs are inconsistent with the treaties that we've signed with the President of the United States. And as someone who's Mi'kmaq, the first treaty that the United States signed in 1776 was with the Mi'kmaq Nation, the Watertown Treaty. And so I understand what the Trump administration is trying to do in terms of doing what they can to negotiate better terms, but they have to understand that they have constitutional responsibilities, as does Canada, and really the age of imperialism is over. So we need to respect Indigenous rights across Canada and North America when we're talking about the future of both of our great countries.
Well, Jaime, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for speaking with us, and definitely stay in touch.
Thank you for having me. Malanin, miigwech.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We have to take a short break, but when we return, we'll tell you about a beach in Ontario that has been at the center of an ownership issue. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The mayor of the South Bruce Peninsula in Ontario says they will appeal a ruling giving ownership of Sauble Beach to Saugeen First Nation. CTV London's Scott Miller reports.
The town of South Bruce Peninsula is making one final push to try and win back Sauble Beach's shoreline.
It's frustrating that it has to be done this way, and it'd be nice if we could sit down in a room and hack out these issues, but we have to involve the federal government with mainly with this survey. So until that's done, we still have to keep playing our cards and doing the right thing for the for the taxpayers and Sauble Beach.
South Bruce Peninsula wants the Supreme Court of Canada to overturn an April 2023 ruling that awarded a stretch of valuable sand along Sauble Beach's shoreline to the Saugeen First Nation. The town's appeal of that decision to the Ontario Court of Appeal was dismissed less than a month ago. At issue is an upcoming land survey by the federal government on what exactly is Saugeen First Nation land and what's owned by South Bruce Peninsula.
If the survey line isn't where the two parties think it is, if we don't put our appeal in, then we don't have any say in the matter.
The 2.2 kilometer stretch of sand in question attracts more than 400,000 tourists each summer and brings in nearly $1 million in parking revenue alone. Public access has continued unfettered since the Saugeen First Nation took ownership 2 summers ago.
If you're a person coming here on holidays, you wouldn't have known any different from the way we ran it or the way that they run it. They've done a fantastic job. We have no complaints about that.
But that literal line in the sand is what's in question. While the Saugeen First Nation has publicly said that public access to Sauble Beach's valuable shoreline will continue and that they don't aspire to own any property or cottages east of Lakeshore Boulevard that runs along the stretch of disputed sand, South Bruce Peninsula wants something in writing that those two issues will remain status quo for the foreseeable future.
As long as that's going to continue, I'm okay with if we don't own the sand portion of the beach. It's just we have to make sure that goes for a long time. So it's something that is a big concern of ours because it'd be detrimental to Sauble Beach to see anything different than the way it's been going.
In Sauble Beach, Scott Miller, CTV News.
The Ottawa Food Bank is cutting donations to nearly 100 programs by up to 50% as it deals with rising costs and increased demand from the public.
We're going into 2025 with a lot of question marks. What's it going to look like? We don't know. We don't know what the landscape is going to be.
The food bank has seen visits jump by more than 90% since 2019. An Ottawa hunger report from last year says there were more than 556,000 visits to the food bank and associated agencies in 2023 alone. The Ottawa Food Bank is calling for government support and asking for the city to declare a food insecurity crisis. A member of the Membertou Mi'kmaq Nation in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia says there is a drug epidemic devastating the lives of people in her community. Candice Denny Paul wrote an open letter to leadership. It included suggestions on how Mi'kmaq traditions could help keep her community safe. Chief and Council have now accepted her letter during a meeting last week. Denny Paul recently spoke to our TR Wheatley. Here's that interview.
Thank you for joining us. What are some of the Mi'kmaq traditions you suggest in your letter that can improve the situation in Membertou?
Some of the recommendations that I have pushed forth to my chief and council really stems back to Indigenous law and how Mi'kmaq communities band together to ensure that their communities were safe. And sometimes that included banishment. However, I don't want to see my people homeless. I have to reiterate that anytime that anybody can listen, because a lot of these issues that have been happening continue to happen because people are quiet. And the harsh reality is that if we keep quiet, it's going to continue, and we need to band together to protect our community and protect our people. That includes the people who are going through addictions and violence. And by protecting them in means of finding them services, they're not going to go into services if they don't want to. So that's why the recommendations, as harsh as they may seem, that's where they come in, because it makes people uncomfortable. It started a dialogue, and that's about it.
Yeah, you posted the open letter on social media. What has been the community's reaction?
Oh my goodness, the reaction has been back and forth. There has been a lot of open dialogue, a lot of really positive conversations, and a lot of negative conversations. So it's more positive than negative, and I'm grateful for that. Any negative comments or messages that have been thrown in my direction, I just met with love, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a deep place of love and a deep caring for my people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a difficult place to be in sometimes. You know, last fall, Chief and Council informed the community that they're aware of the drug problem and are working with authorities. You know, why not wait until they come up with a solution?
Because I feel if we remain stagnant, that letter, not mine, but the letter that was posted back in October, it gets hidden. A lot of people have seen it when it was first posted, but I in fact had to go back and search for it. This is the way that our leaders are communicating with the people. So why are we having to look for letters from our leadership? Why can't they be at the front lines talking to their people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, in more recent days, you made your feelings known. You know that, but has there been a response from leadership?
Absolutely. Although it wasn't immediate, I have received individual responses from my leadership to just show their support. I know that there is not much that they can truly discuss openly. As a community member, I understand that. However, I want to continue this movement, and I want to work collaboratively with Chief and Council. And furthermore, I just want to all approach this with a Mi'kmaq mindset, and to stop with the enabling. I feel like we have enabled our people for far too long. And most recently, I just got invited to a Chief and Council meeting, so that is in the works. The conversation has started, and that was my goal, to start the conversation, have an open dialogue. And I feel now that I'm being heard, that I'm going to continue with this open dialogue. I'm going to hopefully host community engagement round circle discussions so we can discuss my letter. A lot of people are angry at my letter, but a lot of people appreciate my letter too. And I also want to continue the conversation on that level, because community members for community members first.
Yes, this is definitely an issue that's going on across the country right now in many of our communities. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for stepping up for your community.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to shine a light on my community, and I hope for further discussion.
A letter to community members said Membertou Chief and Council are working with authorities to address the situation there. We now want to tell you about this week's new web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, should Canada negotiate child welfare reforms at a national level or with individual regions? Your answers are national, regional, both, or unsure. Have your say at www.aptnnews.ca. Weather and a preview for this week's Face-to-Face is up next. We're back in less than 3 minutes. Starting on the east, Charlottetown -5, Fredericton, Sun, and -3. The Grand River -6, Kuujjuaq -14. Val-d'Or -11, St. Jovite -4. Windsor -9, Sarnia -8 and Sun. Sioux Lookout -19, Sudbury -8 and Sun. Churchill -22, Thompson -26. Gimli -24, Princess Harbor, Sun and -25. Regina -14, Saskatoon, partly cloudy and -16. Uranium City -11, Buffalo Narrows -10. 7 in Peace River, Fort McMurray 5. Edmonton 6, Red Deer 3. Kamloops 0, Campbell River 6. Fort Nelson 1, Smithers 7. Beaver Creek -19, Mayo -14. Fort Simpson -2, Trout Lake 8. Inuvik -1, Colville Lake -9. Baker Lake -16, Chesterfield -26. And Arctic Bay -30, Aglulik -32. It is Tuesday, and that means we have an all-new episode of Face to Face tonight. And in the hot seat is Justice Michelle O'Bonsawin. O'Bonsawin, who is the first Indigenous person to sit on Canada's top court, recently joined TR Wheatley on the set. Here's a preview where she discusses how she learned to speak the Abenaki language leading up to her swearing-in ceremony.
I was really fortunate because the silver lining for me in the pandemic was it gave me an opportunity to learn about my Abenaki language. So we started off 3 days a week in January of 2020. I did intensive classes because the goal was for us to be fluent enough to attend Middlebury College, which is a language college in the States. They were doing a pilot program to teach it the Abenaki language. So we did really intensive courses, and then afterwards I was able to continue my courses online through my First Nation in Odanak. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to, even at my age, now I'm 50, to keep learning my language because it still continues.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Tuesday, January 14th. We're back again for your evening newscast with more stories. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News and from our reporting staff from across the country, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.